Hey, it's Vaz here from Aussie Playground and welcome to another unboxing. Today we're going to be looking at another new product from ARRMA, and this one is the Granite 4x4 Mega. Now this is a 1/10 scale 4-wheel drive brushed monster truck. And yes, it is brushed, but that's because there's no brushless or BLX version of this truck available, at least as of the time of this filming. I have no doubt that ARRMA are probably working on a BLX version as we speak to be released sometime in the future. But for now we'll have to content ourselves with about 30 miles an hour top speed, which is just shy of about 50 kilometers an hour for those of us using the metric system. Now the Granite name has actually been with ARRMA pretty much ever since they came on the market, which was of course their 2-wheel drive monster truck. And then when they released their 1/8 scale vehicles, which were all 4-wheel drive, a lot of people were waiting to see what ARRMA would do to their 1/10 scale range and bring out 4x4 versions of those vehicles. Thankfully ARRMA didn't just put a front diff on their existing platforms, they went back to the drawing board and designed this from the ground up. So this is a completely new platform, and one that's quite intriguing to me because they've got a couple of really cool key features in here that I'll be running through with you during this unboxing. Now the Granite comes in two colors. You have the green one that you see here on the box. There's also a red bodied one, and based on the exact same platform they've also released a short course truck, what they're calling the Senton 4x4. Now that's a little bit confusing to me and a lot of folks out there as well, because they have the Fury, which is their 1/10 scale 2-wheel drive short course truck, and you would have thought that they would have just called it the Fury 4x4, but instead they called it the Senton 4x4, which is a little bit confusing. So the Senton already exists. I've got one over there with the red body, which is my V1 Senton, and you'll be seeing a V3 Senton on the channel very soon as well. So I'm a little bit, I really don't know what to say in regards to the name. I would have thought it would have been Fury 4x4, but I'm sure there's a method to the madness over at ARRMA HQ, you know, they have their reasons as to why they went with that. In any case, the Granite is fully waterproof, 30 mile an hour top speed as I said. So let's have a better look at this guy. We'll get rid of the box and let's have a look at the real thing, because of course staring at a box isn't all that much fun. First thing in my hand here is the wall charger. Now this guy came all the way from the States, so unfortunately it comes with a US plug. We do sell these trucks over at Metro Hobbies where I work, and of course they come with an Australian plug, but yeah, if you do buy these from overseas you're going to be stuck with the plug that's relevant to that country. I still stand by my belief that those chargers should have those little slider plugs that I've seen with a lot of wall chargers that come in ready to run vehicles. It would make life so much easier, so no matter where you get the car from, you've got a plug that plugs into your wall. In any case, it is what it is. Now the manual and bag of goodies, let's have a look at this one. We've got a toolkit over here, which is very basic toolkit actually, but they do give you 3 Allen keys. You got a 1.5 mil, 1.5 mil, 2 mil, and a 2.5 mil. This funny looking red wrench thing that they've got in the bag, this is for you to kind of adjust your slipper clutch in the truck and also be able to take your wheels off on the truck to do any maintenance or anything like that. There's also some extra preload spaces for you to kind of adjust the suspension on there, and they give you a couple of spare little jumper plugs for your ESC for when you're selecting, you know, no reverse or lipo or NIM mode and so on and so forth. So nice that they've included some spares there. Now the user manual, if I can take this guy out of the bag here very quickly, is actually quite thick, and I thought, wow, they've actually done a really good job with the user manual on this one. And for the most part they have. It is written in a variety of different languages, but what they have in here is just some very basic setup instructions. So how to turn the car on, what the buttons on the remote do, how to go forward, reverse, how to turn, just really basic stuff. There are no exploded views or part numbers in the manual that I could find. However, there is a QR code right here on the corner, and of course if you put your smartphone over that, that'll take you to their website, and then you can browse the website for the actual exploded view and look for part numbers and things of that nature. It's up to you whether or not you like that method. I know that there's, you know, ARRMA are not the only one to kind of go electronic with some of their manuals. I've seen other companies do that, but yeah, just an interesting one. Now, the remote is the Tactic TTX 300. I probably said tactic wrong, but in any case, runs on 4 AA's, no collapsible antennas. You guys have probably seen me review this remote plenty of times, so I won't go into too much detail on this unboxing, but I've had no issues with these remotes. They feel really good in the hand. The steering feels really nice. I really like them. I don't have an issue with them at all. And of course, batteries are not included for the remote, so you will need 4 AA's to get that guy powered up. Now for the truck itself, I'll bring this up to the camera and give you the good old spin around as I always do, so you can have a good look at it. I really like the color scheme that ARRMA have done here. I've always liked the mold and paint schemes that ARRMA go for in their vehicles. This one here is no exception, of course. Very nice. The green really pops, stands out, and I really don't have too many issues with it at all. The body does come with these little rubber things to kind of hold the body clips to the body, so you're not losing body pins or body clips whenever you're out on the field. So nice to see that they've included those. The quality of the body itself actually feels really good. Feels nice and tough. Definitely a lot tougher than some of the other 1/10 scale monster trucks I've unboxed in the past. One that comes to mind is the Team Magic E5, because as much as I like that truck, the body was really flimsy and very thin. So nice to see that ARRMA have actually put some extra thickness on this one. I really have no concerns for the durability of this. One thing I would like to see on these vehicles is obviously that extra tape that they do on their 1/8 scale vehicles, and put some of that tape in here just to prevent any of the paint kind of rubbing off when it's, you know, when the body's touching body posts and the chassis and so forth. But that's something that anybody can do. You just put a bit of tape in there and you can do that yourself. Now, I will give you some close-ups of the truck as I'm talking to you, of course, but this is the basic layout of the chassis that you see there, and that's the underside. And I guess we'll do like we always do. We'll start from the outside and work our way in. Let's start with these tires. Now, the tires actually feel really good. Really nice soft rubber. The foams don't feel too firm or too soft. I think ARRMA have actually done a really good job here. I'm hoping that they grip up well in the BMX track where I run my cars. But from what I can see, I really like the feel of these tires. I think they've done a really good job. The wheels look really nice as well. I don't mind them. Suspension wise, not too bad. A little light. The suspension feels a little bit light, especially on the front. Definitely feels a little bit light. It almost feels like it's sagging a bit in the rear, so I may need to put an extra preload spacer in the rear just to keep it up. Otherwise it might be dragging its back everywhere, especially when, you know, you take jumps and things like that. I don't want it to be slapping that rear too hard. Front and rear bumpers actually feel really nice and sturdy. The front bumper definitely has a little bit more flex to it. The back one feels a little bit more rigid, but hopefully they'll hold up really well during my tests. Now the shocks, you'll see here, these are plastic bodied shocks. They're not threaded, of course. As I said, you got preload spacers for them. But they have these little guards here to protect the shock shafts from getting any debris or anything like that, and, you know, causing all sorts of a mess there. So I really like that little touch there. And they've got the same guards on the rear shocks as well. So very nice to see that one. The A-arms actually feel real nice and beefy. They feel nice and strong. Front one tapers out towards the wheel a little bit, obviously to allow for more for the steering. So that's obviously that's just part of the design. There are no adjustable holes on the A-arms or on the shock towers front and rear. So the suspension geometry is kind of stuck where it is. You're not going to be able to adjust that. Same thing goes for your camber and toe links on the front and the camber links on the rear. These are solid plastic pieces. I'm sure that at some point you might be able to get adjustable ones in the future, but for now these are fixed. And you know, the camber and toe obviously are set up pretty nicely out of the box, so hopefully you won't need to adjust those at all. Now, one nice little thing I do notice here is on these kind of knuckles that they've got going on here for the steering, you'll notice that there's this little guard here kind of protecting the drive shaft. Now, these drive shafts are those telescopic drive shafts that you'll see on ECX cars. My Viterra Hallex had them. Even a lot of the you know, the Traxxas vehicles have got them as well. And they've put those guards there just to protect any sort of dirt and debris getting in those joints and jamming up your drive shafts. So really nice touch. I really like that. And the same thing goes for the rear as well. So even the rear axle carriers have got those little guards. So very nice touch there from ARRMA. I like that. Now, body posts look to be adjustable. They have screws on either side. You can remove those and of course adjust the height of the body posts, which is always a big plus for me. If you follow my videos, you know that I'm a big fan of adjustable body posts, because at some point somebody's going to swap out the body. They're going to put something aftermarket and they want to be able to adjust it so that, you know, it sits on the truck properly. So nice to see that these ones are actually adjustable. The chassis itself has these great big walls kind of on the left and right of the truck. This is of course to prevent debris from getting into the truck. It may not stop it entirely, but it's definitely a nice little prevention method to stop all sorts of stuff getting in here. So again, nice touch there. Moving on to the battery that's included, because this does come with a battery. Now the battery is a 7-cell nickel metal hydrate, and it is 2400 milliamps. Now that's not too bad. It's probably a little bit lower. I'd prefer something around about 3000 at least. But it will be interesting to see what sort of runtime you get with this pack. Now very quickly I will show you that they've actually got the battery kind of pinned in with some wire management just going on here. So this is obviously to stop the cables from flopping around while you're running the RC and prevent them from coming unplugged. So I really like that as well. And you know, you can probably see a bit of a pattern here where there's all these little things that ARRMA have done on this truck that you don't see on a lot of other vehicles. So very, very well done. There's the pack itself. Comes with a T-style or Dean's style connectors, which are fine for these 1/10 scale vehicles running brushed motors. You don't really need to go overboard with connectors. If you don't have a preference, you can just stick with the Dean's. They'll be fine in this truck. You won't get many complaints from me about that. Of course, I'll be swapping mine out to XT60s because that's what I use with all of my batteries. But if it wasn't for that, I would have probably just kept it at Dean's. I think with the brushed motor, no issue. So the drive shaft here is one of the interesting features that this truck has got. It's actually telescopic as well, but it's spring-loaded. So you can see that I can pull this all the way down and actually take the drive shaft clean out. So if I can put it back in now, that'll be great. So a little bit of a twist, there we go, and it locks back into place. Now the reason why they've done that is because if you want to access your motor and pinion and spur gear and everything else, it only really takes one screw. So there is a screw underneath here, this little guy here. You take that out, you pull this red piece out of the way, you take this guy out of here, pull the drive shaft off just as I did before, and then when you lift this tab, this whole module kind of pops clean out. And you can service it and, you know, change motors, change pinions, clean out your gears, do whatever it is that you need to do. So very, very cool design. I don't see that being too much of an issue. It has only one screw, but the screw has a locking nut on the top side of the chassis that's embedded into that red piece. So you're not actually putting the screw into plastic, you're putting it into another nut, like a nylon nut. So very, very nicely done. The motor, in case you're wondering, is a 12-turn 550 size motor. So it should have plenty of power for this truck, especially being only a 12-turn. I think that should be sufficient. Hopefully. We'll soon find out when I actually run it. ESC is waterproof, of course, as is the steering servo. Now the ESC has these little jumpers just on here, these little tabs, and you can kind of adjust whether or not you want reverse on the truck, which I don't see too many people taking reverse out, and whether you're going to be running nickel metal hydrate, which is the provided battery, or you're going to be running Lipo. Now the reason why you need to sort of select which battery chemistry you're going to use is because with Lipo, you need to have a Lipo cutoff because you know, they can only discharge to about 3.2 volts. Most people will actually even raise that up to about 3.4 just to be safe. But 3.2 is probably about the lowest that you'd want to go. That's per cell, not for the entire pack. So it's very important that you select the right battery chemistry so that you don't overdrain your Lipo batteries and potentially damage those cells. With nickel metal, you can pretty much run them all the way until empty, but with Lipo it's very different. Now the steering servo is only a 5 kilogram steering servo according to the box, and I have to say I'm a little bit concerned about that. I mean, as much as I like ARRMA and everything, I do feel that they've been really conservative with the servo here. I would have thought something somewhere between, say, 7 to 10 kilograms would have been better, preferably towards the 10 kilo mark. Because 5 kilograms is something that I would personally choose to put in like a two-wheel drive car, because it's very lightweight in the front. You know, you don't have any sort of drive in there to really counter the steering of the servo. So that's where I would put a servo that's about 5 kilos. Something like this, you'd want to double up a little bit. You'd want to go a bit more. You've got much bigger tires. You've got obviously drive going to those tires, and you've got a diff that's on the front of the car, obviously weighing down the front end. So it'll be interesting to see how this guy holds up. Now, to access all of these components here, such as your motor and your ESC, they've also made this very, very easy to do. There are 5 screws in total that you take out from on the underside of the chassis, and then you disconnect your servo horn as well. And then this entire pod comes out. And that includes your servo, your ESC, and of course the receiver box, which is what the ESC is mounted onto. So that's where your receiver will be. So again, very nicely done, real easy and simple to work on. You don't have to disassemble half the truck just to access certain components. They've done this very, very well, and I think it's very well thought out. Now you may have noticed as well that the front and rear diff cases actually taper upwards. As you can see there, they actually taper up. Now the reason for that is because the diffs in this truck are actually quite big. They're 51 millimeters in diameter. To give you a bit of an idea of how big they are compared to some of these other cars, I'll quickly get the box here and I'll show you, where is it, on this side, you've got 51 millimeters for these 10 scale diffs. You have 47 millimeters for the Nero and 39 millimeters for like your Outcast and Creighton diffs and so forth. So, whoops. So really big differentials, and of course inside it's all metal gears as well. Really nicely done there. I really don't have any complaints in regards to that. I think ARRMA have really designed this with BLX in mind, I think. Obviously for a brushed vehicle like this, these diffs are going to be almost bulletproof, but once you put a brushless system in here, that's when things really get tested out properly. I have seen some people change these out to brushless, but I am concerned about what these plastic drive shafts are going to be like in the long run, whether they're going to have fatigue, or whether they're going to twist and break or anything like that with that brushless system. Chances are they probably won't, but it'll be interesting to see nonetheless, especially when they or if they release a BLX version of these cars, what changes they're going to make them a little bit more robust, a little bit more stout. And now I have noticed that there's a couple of aluminium pieces, probably the only ones that are included in the truck here. You've got the hinge pin brace on the rear of the rear A-arms and on the front of the front A-arms. So those little bits there are aluminium, and of course the hinge pins are very interesting thing regarding those is that there's no hinge pin brace behind the A-arms. The pins themselves actually go straight into the chassis. So that might be really good for extra strength, but I am concerned that if you do end up damaging the holders where those pins go into, and of course you need to have a pretty significant impact to really rip the A-arm off and damage where the hinge pins go into. But if you do damage those parts, you're going to be up for probably a brand new chassis. So that's an interesting concept. I wouldn't think that they would have done that, but looks as though they have. Don't know if that's a positive or a negative, but I guess we'll find out in the long run. Now I'm just looking at these bumpers as well, and there's something very interesting about the design of these bumpers. I don't know if I can show this properly on camera. You can see that there's actually, these are hinged, so I might be able to flex that this way, which is quite interesting. And also if you look dead on, there's actually screws that are all the way back here. So they've actually allowed access for you to take out those screws. And for the front bumper, it's the same story. So you can see that there. And then of course it's hinged on the front here to allow flex and movement depending on how, what sort of impact you have. So again, another clever design, something that you don't really see in other RCs, something that most average person wouldn't think of. They kind of brought this up on this truck, so very, very cool indeed. Velcro straps to hold the battery in, as you probably would have seen. There's also a little nice cushy pad for the battery to sit on. And I think I've covered pretty much everything that I need to cover. One of the things that really amazes me about a lot of these cars from ARRMA is how they stamp so many of their components with the ARRMA branding, whether it will be their symbol, so the symbol like you see here, or even here, and even on the preload spaces, they've got it here as well. On the shock tower, they've got it on the body posts. If the camera would focus, that would be great. Come on, focus you. There you go, you can see it on the body post there. On the drive shaft, they got it going along the side here. And then of course underneath the chassis as well. So you can see they got the ARRMA symbol, they got ARRMA written everywhere. Undeniably, this is their car. So you can't really fool anybody to think, oh geez, is that an ARRMA, are you sure? Yeah, you just look at all the plastic parts and there's this ARRMA printed everywhere. I mean, I do like it, but I do think sometimes they go a bit overboard, to be honest with you. But aside from that, I mean, I do like the overall layout. I like the simplicity of this truck. Yeah, just the honeycomb design they got going on with the chassis and how flat and straight it is underneath. So it keeps low center of gravity, and of course if you're going over some really rough uneven terrain, it's just going to skip along that terrain without getting snagged everywhere. Very, very good design, I think. I'm just dying to really test this thing out and take it out to the track and just see how it performs overall, because at the end of the day, that's where the real test is. Despite what I might think of it here on the bench, it's not until I take it out to the track that we'll start to see its weak points, its strengths, and whether or not it's been set up correctly out of the box. But for now, I'm going to leave this one here. Thank you all very much for watching, as always. Don't forget to check out the video description for more information on the truck, as well as links to my social media pages such as Facebook, Instagram, and of course Patreon if you want to jump on board and help out the channel. If you have any questions or comments, please be sure to leave them in the usual comment section down below. I'll do my best to get back to you. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. Of course, if you subscribe, you'll be able to catch up on all the new videos I got coming up, and make sure you click that notification bell next to the subscribe button so that you get notified when I upload a video. But for now, I'm going to leave it here, guys. Thank you again for watching, and as always, I'll be speaking to you all next time.